We're just gonna wait. That's funny. I was like, who's Anne?
This sweet old life. I don't know what that is.
Oh my gosh.
So excited. He's gonna see your teddy bear.
He's gonna see your ugly face, so just kidding. I really want Dunkin'.
Okay.
We should get coffee.
Become friends with Charlie D'Amelio and you'll get free Dunkin' all the time.
I wonder if she gets free Dunkin'. Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
We gotta get our picture on here a second.
Okay.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
Hello.
It's good to see you.
We're so excited for this.
We're so
Thank you so much
excited.
for doing this
More
for
of an
us.
expert on this than I am.
What?
My wife is more of an expert on Zoom than I am.
Oh.
That's so funny.
I'm
Yeah, so I'm Madison and
My name's Eleanor.
we go to Ann Arbor Academy in Hillsborough, North Carolina.
Okay, I happen to know where that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're in ninth grade
6 years
and yeah,
in
we're doing a
Durham.
project on the endangered species. We gotta pick Carolina northern flying squirrels. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm a retired faculty member from Wake Forest. And when I was a graduate student at Duke, that's where I started studying flying squirrels. That was a long time ago. And I worked in the mountains. I worked in several places, but it was an interesting project, and we published the work finally. And it turned out to be an interesting project because of the way these animals live. Now, how did you get into it? Well, let me say a little bit more. I've been at Wake Forest now for a long time. I'm retired, but I've been interested in working with the Wildlife Commission and with other folks who are still studying the animal. One of the people you mentioned to me is someone who's still at it,
Chris Kelly?
Yes.
Miss Kelly. Have you talked with her?
Yes, we talked with her this morning.
Okay. Chris is very good, and I remember when she was just starting out, and she's done some good work since. But I've done a lot of the basic stuff, and then she's taken it on from there.
Nice. So, well, how did you get into flying squirrels, like, specifically?
I was always interested in them. I had them as a kid when I was a kid in New York State. I had a couple of pet squirrels. But then when I came to grad school, I was interested in finding animals that I could use to test ecological theories. And I was particularly interested in how two species interacted on the border when they came together in certain places. And this squirrel you're studying, the northern flying squirrel, is up in the mountains most of the time. And it comes in contact with the southern flying squirrel only in certain areas. And I was interested in the interaction, whether the interaction was what was keeping them up in the mountains. And so I started to do work for my degree on that. And one thing led to another that involved both behavior and physiology and genetics to some extent and all kinds of other things. And then I continued that work when I came over to Winston-Salem. And I had grad students and undergrads who worked with me on this. And so they deserve a lot of the credit for some of the work that was done.
Nice. Yes.
So how did you people get into this? And how long do you have for this project?
Well, We were said to pick an endangered species from North Carolina, and we picked the Carolina northern flying squirrel, obviously. And we were researching it, and we realized there wasn't like as much research. And another question I was gonna ask, like how not like extinct, but like how endangered are they? Like how many do you think there are like left?
How endangered are they? Well, they only occur in certain habitats, one. And they seem to, because their foods are there. They also, it seems that they may interact with the southern flying squirrel in a negative way. And that when the forests change from conifer forests or mixed forests to hardwood forests, then the southern flying squirrel comes in and it tends to dominate both behaviorally, but it has another nasty trick that it does. It carries a parasite which it can transfer to the northern flying squirrel. The northern flying squirrel doesn't seem to be able to defend itself from that, not only part of the time. That's also complicated by its food because in the conifer areas where it lives, it has access to foods which may neutralize the parasite. Does that make sense to you, what I
Yeah,
just
that's
said?
actually
Yeah.
really interesting. I didn't think about it, like how they could maybe like be like have like a parasite or like a disease that they can't fend off, and that's why they're being so endangered.
So there's like a sort of biological warfare. But the other thing is that where the southern flying squirrel can come in because the forests have been changed and made so that they are more hardwood rather than conifer, then the northern flying squirrels at something of a disadvantage. One, because he may lose the foods that protect him, but secondly, because the southern flying squirrel is so dominant. It comes in and uses most of the nesting sites. So northern flying squirrel, on the other hand, must have certain foods that the southern flying squirrel can't use. It digs up around the roots, and you may have heard this from Chris, and digs up the fungi,
Yeah, they
certain
eat
fungi that are
truffles.
associated with trees.
Yeah.
And it eats these fungi, and it can live on these almost exclusively. But then it can't digest the spores from the fungi. So for the next 7 weeks after it eats the fungi, as it goes through the woods, it's dripping spores, it's pooping out spores, and these fall on the ground, and these become the basis for the fungal development in new trees. And it's the fungus that allows the trees to grow so well in those areas. The fungus forms around the roots of the trees, and then it increases the surface area of the root system so the tree can absorb more water and nutrients. If it didn't have that, it wouldn't be very successful.
That's really
Does that
interesting.
make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Thank you.
So,
Yes.
now how long do you have to work on this?
I think it's actually like due tomorrow, but we finished most of the stuff. We just wanted to get like some interviews in because we thought it'd be like really good. Like,
Okay, because I have something I've written here that would have been helpful, but I didn't know about it.
we can that'd still be helpful.
Yeah.
We can always go over it and like
Yeah.
there's just a couple little things.
We've
we have
been
to finish.
working on it for like 3 weeks now, so
Okay,
we
well, what year are you folks at school?
9th grade.
yeah.
9th grade? Wow. You people had the guts to go bother somebody because you were doing something. That's terrific.
Thank
It is.
you.
Thank you.
And I hope you're very successful. What I will do is, if you will send me an address, I will send you a copy of this. This is something we wrote on the northern flying squirrel.
Really? That'd be
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
That's what Chris has used since, and she's taken it and extended it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I will email you. That's awesome. Thank you so
Have
much.
you
Thank
ever
you.
seen a northern flying squirrel?
What? No, I've never seen one. I've never
Yeah.
even seen a southern flying squirrel. Because she had some in her attic actually. But I've
Yeah.
never seen one in real
That's
life other
fantastic.
than
They're cute, aren't they?
Yes,
they're so
are.
adorable.
They're so cute.
They are, and that's been a problem because people in some parts of the country will get them and they will sell them as pets, especially
Yeah.
from Asia.
That's the only part. That's the only time I've ever seen a flying squirrel. Is I think some lady for like class bring in her pet flying squirrel. I don't know.
People get them locally, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Flying squirrels are generally gentle. They don't bite very much. Some from North Carolina have. Now they sometimes carry something that affects people, but it's not very common, and you wouldn't have to worry. But if northern flying squirrels are hard to get to see because they're so rare, and you have to be in the right place. And we would trap them, or we would put nest boxes out for them, hundreds of nest boxes, and we catch them that way. And then you'd mark them, or you put radio collars on them, and that's how we studied them.
Yeah, we saw some of the nest boxes, and then we saw like that they would put the nets,
Yeah.
connect the nets to the holes in the nest boxes, and
Since
then
they're like nocturnal, so they don't really like wanna like fly out into Zoom or really like sleep, so they kind of just like put them in there.
Okay, you can. We didn't use nets. We ran them into sort of cage-like things with a sliding door, so they'd all go in there. We close the door, and then we could work on the individual animals afterwards. And then we take them back to the same tree and release them,
Nice.
so that we study them further. We didn't take any, except in the early studies when they weren't protected, we didn't take any out other than that. And we needed to take some in for a vet to look at. That's how we found out about the parasite.
Oh, that's so sad. But I was wondering if you have any other like facts about them, like fun facts that are like interesting they wouldn't really like expect about them.
Facts. There are, the northern ones are perhaps they're fairly docile. Both species are docile. Northern ones aren't as hyper, and but they're easy enough to keep. The thing is that you can't keep them where they have access to this parasite that I was saying that causes problems for them. So they haven't moved down the mountains. They will move into an area at times and settle there. But if a lot of other species, especially southern flying squirrels, are there, they disappear from those areas. Areas where they do well is conifer areas or mixed forest in the mountains, and they're up pretty high, up about above 4,500 feet. So they're quite an altitude, and this has led to them being isolated to some extent on different peaks in different parts of the southern Appalachians. When you get north into Virginia, West Virginia, and so on, where the mountains aren't as high, then they come down and you'll have both species closer together. And in New England, you have both species in the same areas.
That's so cool.
They're fun to mess with because they're cute, okay?
yeah,
They are really
yeah,
adorable.
they're really cute.
Okay, I'm curious how you chose this animal. They're cute and they're not destructive. They can bite, and they can bite even through gloves on occasion. They don't generally try to do that. They're fairly gentle, they're fairly tame. But they're fast, and then the other problem is they come out only at night.
Yeah.
Hard to work with them. Now they can operate during the day. If you catch them and release them, they will go right back to their nest, or they'll move around. They can see, but they don't generally choose to move around it.
Or is it southern flying squirrels also nocturnal?
Yes, they are.
Because I don't think regular squirrels are, because like I always see them running around during the day. So I
No,
find that
the
really...
other squirrels that we have are the most common squirrel where the northern occurs is the red squirrel. And we had first thought that the red squirrel might be a limiting factor for the flying squirrels, but I don't think it is. They don't seem to interact at all. In fact, the years when we had a lot of red squirrels in our traps and so on, we also had a lot of flying squirrels, and so they obviously they're not having a negative impact. But southern flying squirrels, it was more of a factor. And, more needs to be done on this, and I had some undergraduates do work on the parasite situation, and we can, if a flying squirrel has lived in an area, a southern flying squirrel, and it has parasites, if it's lived in an area and a northern comes in and uses the same nest box, they can pick up the parasite. Parasite has the insidious habit, lives in the soil or into the nest box material, and then when it hatches out, it can bore through the skin of the feet and get into the animal that way.
Yeah. I was wondering if you know of like a recovery plan for them and to how to like get them to not be as endangered as they are.
I didn't get that because there's some distortion in the voice.
Oh, you're fine.
Has anyone come up with like a recovery plan and like how like a proactive way to help them not be almost?
Yes, years ago, a bunch of us did a recovery plan, and now that's out of date. So now they've been working on something more advanced, and there is a plan, but it's mostly has to do with increasing the habitat of the northern flying squirrel. Chris may have told you about this. She and some others have been planting spruce in areas. But the spruce, and they do better in mixed conifer forests. Flying squirrels, southern flying squirrels don't like those as well. They don't like to walk in them. They don't like to use them. However, where these northerns occur, there is another tree called a fir, Fraser fir. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, it's the major Christmas tree at this time of year.
Yeah.
That you pick up in a lot where they're selling it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Fraser firs occur in the mountains there, and they're really, they smell good. They're a neat tree, but they're very fragrant, and that's due to the fact that they have certain oils in the leaves and in the bark. Well, that oil is also found in the cones, the staminate cones, the male cones of the tree, and these are a major food of the northern flying squirrel at certain times of year. In fact, when I first started working, they were not protected, and we would take stomachs of the northern flying squirrels, and we would analyze them for the contents. But lots of times it was mostly the staminate cones from these trees. Those oils, I think, are toxic to the parasite. So when the animal occurs up there, it not only is free of the parasite much of the time, because sources, but it also has foods that protect it. And one other thing, the parasite's very sensitive to cold. And so where they occur in the mountains, it's much colder than where southern generally occurs. And so that makes a difference.
That's so interesting because we didn't, because Chris Kelly didn't really talk about like this parasite that you're talking about. So that I found that really interesting. How like that's connected because I didn't think about the connection to the southern flying squirrels. I didn't realize that like they could like have like they don't like that's why they're so endangered because they don't really work together. Since southern flying squirrels like take up such like a bigger population that they're kind of just like pushed back into one area.
I didn't get that question. Your voice breaks up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just saying, I think it's really interesting about what you're talking about, the parasite and all that, because Chris Kelly didn't talk about that, and I found that really interesting how you're talking about how the southern flying squirrels and the northern flying squirrels are related.
Oh, they're related, but they're not closely related. They can't interbreed as far as they generally don't.
She was talking about the relationship. The relationship between the northern and southern flying squirrels is interesting.
Okay, the relationship as we know it is one where they essentially live sometimes in the same areas, but they don't interact much.
Yeah, that's
They eat
interesting.
different foods. The southern flying squirrel is a seed eater,
Hmm.
and it eats. So it will only live in an area where it can store foods that'll get it through the winter. This would be nuts, particularly acorns and the seeds of some of the cherry trees and some of the others. The northern flying squirrel is a fungus eater. It gets that from the roots of certain trees and from other places, and it'll store that and eat that, and it doesn't store a lot of food all through the winter. Um, it lives on food that it can gather. It doesn't store a lot of. No, they're really good at getting food. They can find food. These fungi that they get at the roots of trees are would be hard to find if you go out and dig. You may find a few, but not many. But when they are ripe, they smell, and the squirrels can smell those, and that's how they orient to the fungi at the roots. And this is well known from other species now too. So this is one of the ways that they get the food that they need, and they're really good at it. Uh, but it took a long time for us to get an idea of what they were eating and how they were getting it. But no, there's so much to the biology of these things that it took us a long time to begin to unravel just a little bit of it.
Have you ever had a pet flying squirrel?
Yes, lots of times.
Really? That's so cool.
Yeah.
I worked with other squirrels too, and uh, we raised a lot of squirrels here at the house, and we had oh gosh, we had gray squirrels, we had fox squirrels, we had a number of them.
Do you
I have
still
a
have
daughter.
some today?
Pardon?
Do you still have some today?
No, not today, unfortunately. Well, it's actually fortunate because they take a lot of time to take care of. But the fox squirrels, well, the first squirrels we raised a lot of hand-raised some because we needed to get them when they were inexperienced and little, and we raised them until they grew independent. I have a daughter who is a bit older than you are, but when she was in grade school, she took a baby squirrel to school, and it was very tame. It was a gray squirrel, and people could handle it, and the kids handled it, and they gave it back to her, and she brought it home, and we eventually released it here near the house, and it did fine.
My neighbor had a pet squirrel. I remember when I was younger, he found this baby squirrel in his backyard that has been abandoned. So he took him in until he grew up, and then let him back, and trained him.
Yep. There are people, rehabbers, who specialize in squirrels. Anyway, my daughter brought the squirrel home, and we released it. But some weeks after, her teacher contacted her, said to her, "Debbie, how is your squirrel?" She says, she had a sense of humor. She says, "I don't know. We ate it." And we hadn't eaten a damn thing, but the teacher was really offended. She called me, and I had to tell her that no, the squirrel was fine. But my daughter got some mileage out of that sort of experience.
It's so
So
funny.
you find that people who do this sort of work after a while have sort of unusual senses of humor and so on. So you're going to do this project, and then you continue it next semester, or what?
Yes, and then but I don't know. I just find it really interesting.
This is our last week doing biology,
Yeah,
and then we take our EOC next week.
which is our end of test where we have to the big test at the very end.
Our
Have
school.
you had face classes?
We do not.
It's all been remote?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God, okay.
I know. I really
It's
miss.
sad.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and this is your last biology course?
This is our last week of school, and then we have Christmas break.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
And then after we get back, we start new classes because what our school does is we do 4 classes in the first half of the year and then 4 classes in the second half. And so
so
Okay.
each class is like an hour and a half long.
we've been
You're
doing,
busy.
yeah,
I'm sure you're busy. You know, they have a lot for you to do.
yeah,
We do. We have
Yeah.
like a lot more like classwork that we do like for homework, so it's just like a lot.
yeah.
Oh yeah. So do you have to write a little paper on the flying squirrel then?
We're actually making a Google site on them and like the
Yeah.
recovery plan. We're making a bunch of about their habitat and just about like just them overall.
Okay, well that's good.
Yes.
You know, if you're interested in this, there are probably in your area there are people who are known as rehabbers, the animal rehabbers. They take in animals that have been injured and they take care of them until they're able to go on their own. And sometimes they need help. And if this is something that interests you, you might find that there was an opportunity to help these people.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've learned a fair amount from what you're doing, so you put it to use. And there are a lot of people who do something like that. Many of them get in with hawks and owls, but they also do other animals too.
I know for we live right beside the Eno River, and I remember I went to one of their parks and they always do this like trail where they have a bunch of animals that they've rescued. They rescued a falcon, and I'm pretty sure they had a flying squirrel, and they had rescued an owl, and they'd show you because they're rehabbing it.
That's great. Wow.
Yes.
You get to see them. Well, we worked on owls too, and we worked on hawks. Worked on a variety of squirrels, and I've taken students to work in 5 continents: South America, Africa, and Asia.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And so it's been fun, and I've learned a lot. But I learned a lot from the students too.
Mhm.
When did you write your book?
Pardon?
When did you write your book?
Oh, this is one. This is on flying squirrels, but I've written one on fox squirrels, and I've written some other papers because that's what faculty members do. But I haven't been teaching the last few years because technically I'm retired. But I've still got an office and I'm still working on things at Wake Forest. We have a collection of animals, of vertebrate animals, which these are all preserved, which we use for teaching purposes. And I take care of that collection right now, and I'm going to hand it off to somebody else soon. I've done it for 50 years.
Oh, wow.
That's so cool.
It's been a while.
Yes.
So it's been fun. You learn a lot. You learn all the time, but you learn from people like yourself who are seeing things for the first time, who ask questions. That's a good help.
Yes. I'll send you my address. The book looks so awesome. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to read it.
Okay, well, you people have put in the time, but if you can continue with stuff, I think that would be good, you know. Do you have any other questions on the animal? I don't know how long.
I
You
don't
may have
think
gotten a
so.
lot of information from Chris.
I think I'm trying to. Oh, can you describe how they like glide and like how do they like,
How do they go uphill? How do they glide?
can they go uphill or
Yeah.
do they only go like down?
They can't glide uphill. What they do is they're jumping from a height, usually, and they glide down, and they at the very end they can change. I'll get my hand up high enough. They can change their trajectory so they got enough momentum so that they then can go up and land on a tree somewhere. But they cannot gain altitude.
Mhm.
They can't flap,
Yeah.
and so
They kind of just like have like wing glider.
they have to go up. They have to be in a forest where they can jump off. Now they can move along the ground, but they're pretty clumsy, and they're very subject to predators. Then, if they're fumbling along the ground, something can easily run them down. But if there are trees around, they'll jump from tree to tree, or they'll go as high as they can and jump off. And that's great to watch. I'd like you to see sometime if you can get in a place where there's a flying squirrel, and he can climb climb up high and then leap off. That's a great thing to watch because they'll glide a long way.
Yeah, I've never seen one in person. I wonder why. Like, I was talking with my dad about the other day because I was talking about my project, and he was like, I've never seen a flying squirrel. I'm like, I haven't either. But Chris Kelly was telling us, like, how common they are, like the southern flying squirrels, at least in North Carolina, and I've never seen one.
It's because they come out at night.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to see one, do any of you have bird feeders at home?
I do. I have one right outside my house and a bunch of squirrels that do eat that, too.
Okay, now, bird feeders, some bird feeders will draw flying squirrels if they're in a wooded area. They'll draw them in, and they will come to a feeder at night. In fact, they'll do it regularly. And if something doesn't scare them off, but they learn to do that. And so that's where a lot of people see them. Or they're in somebody's attic, and they can make a tremendous amount of noise rumbling around up there, right?
They were in her attic.
Yeah.
And they eat things too when they're up there. It's annoying.
It's dangerous because if they eat wires, they can start a fire.
They could, yes. Although they generally don't preferentially eat wires. If there's other things
Yeah.
to chew on, those. Yeah, people don't want them in the attics because they make a mess and they chew on things and they not just wires. But they're pretty harmless. They're not very dangerous to people. You can see them and have them come to a bird feeder, then it's great to watch them because, especially if the bird feeder is up high enough so that when they leave the feeder, they have to glide. That's sometimes neat to see, but they're hard to see because they're gray on top and white underneath, and so they glide off. Boy, they disappear in a hurry. If you can find a hollow tree in a wooded area and shake it, and if there's flying squirrels there, they will glide out, and they generally glide to certain trees they're familiar with. And you see them glide there, and then they climb up again and glide again, and that's what they do.
That's cool.
It's really cool.
They're really cool animals.
Chris Kelly was telling us about this there's this road in Asheville that the squirrels cannot cross, so they made like a little like thing to go above it, and I thought that was so cute that they just did that for the squirrels.
That's something that Chris did. She was responsible for that herself. She organized that. There's several crossings. It was the Cherahela Highway. We did the work on the squirrels before she did, and then she did this business where she set up a system of bridges, really, which were ropes or something of the sort, and the squirrels would climb across, or they could get up high enough to glide across if it was narrow enough.
I found that was so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really neat. It's really neat. That was a good idea that she had, and that the big roads can cause a lot of barriers, produce a lot of barriers to these animals and other ones.
Yeah.
Because they can't get across easily.
Especially since they're endangered, it's like more important to protect them because I always see like dead animals on the side of the road. So especially since they're endangered, you want to like protect them as much as you can.
Flying squirrels generally aren't hit. They're not on the roads very much because many of them can glide across the road. But if they get hit, there's a certain number that do. I don't think that's a big source of mortality. I think there are really other things that eat them. Some predators will get them. It's the destruction of the habitat which does damage. People destroying the trees or destroying the way that the various elements are arranged. That could make a big difference too. In other words, if your trees are so far apart they can't glide between them, they've got a difficult situation.
Yes.
So you folks have found a lot. Did Chris have anything else that she mentioned?
I just remember saying I thought it was really interesting that they eat truffles from the ground, like you're saying they eat fungus from the ground and stuff. And I thought
Truffles
that was really
aren't fungus.
yeah. and like how they because I would think they'd eat like like regular squirrels like acorns, but they don't do that at all.
Truffles, this has been the amusing thing. You tell people that your squirrels eat truffles, they think of not the little ones that they're eating, but the big truffles, which are food in France and Europe.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
the
on.
chocolate truffles.
That's a different thing.
Mhm.
That's called a truffle
Yeah.
because it looks like the one that occurs naturally. But the truffles are very high-priced food that you can get. You can get them, they grow in this country, but not very commonly. But people spend a lot of time trying to get them, and then they sell them for a very high price. Now, in Europe, they use just like what we said. They use animals to find the truffles.
Oh yeah, she was
And they-
saying they use pigs.
Yes, they do it by smell. And so you have an old farmer going out with a pig on a leash. He's got a bag with him has potatoes in it. And the pig will start digging. Smells the truffle. And he yanks the pig back and gives it a potato, and then he takes up the truffle and keeps it. And that's the way they collect them. That's one of the ways. You can use dogs for that, but that's a neat system. But the truffles, those truffles are big, and they're used in all kinds of foods. Very expensive, but they affect the flavor. In fact, you can find truffle-flavored oils and so on in the grocery store.
I see truffle salt. I've seen that.
Yes, right. It has a distinct flavor. I'm not as familiar with it. I like mushrooms and so on, but I don't find enough truffles to eat. I haven't so far. Maybe one day I'll have to get a tame flying squirrel with a leash. Have it hopping without getting my truffles. That's not a very common thing, though.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that was all the questions we had. So just thank you so much. It means so much that you went out of your way and you Zoomed us, and it just means a lot.
Well, I'm very pleased that you did, and I'm curious, how did you find the names for Chris and me?
Well, that was a long story. So I had to call about 30 people. So I first called the NC Wildlife Committee, and I called them, and they sent me to this like random person for each district. And I kept, because it was just like all the biologists for them, and I was like, do you know anyone who like knows a lot about flying squirrels? And they gave me two names, Chris Kelly and Peter Weigl. And so I found you guys, and I think someone gave me both your emails, and so I used that and I emailed you.
Okay, well, that took a lot of guts to do what you guys did.
And I accidentally called I meant to press the number for something else, and I accidentally called the animal control for like if you've been like attacked by like a rabid animal, and I was like, I didn't mean to press that number, because it was like press 1 or like press 2 for this option. I actually pressed the wrong number, so it was a long process, but I'm so glad I was able to talk to you.
You spent a lot of time on the phone then.
Yes, it was not like a whole day. We were like
I think
tracking.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you're gutsy people to do this, and I think that's you've learned a lot, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But I think that you go and run down Chris and me. I was very surprised. I've had other people do that lately, particularly studying other things, and we've done a lot of work on the mountaintops and what's happened to vegetation and the kinds of animals that were there during the Ice Age, and there are people who are working with that, and I'm curious. But I wish you luck with your project, but
Thank you.
sometimes I have some northern flying squirrels preserved, but I don't, I don't have them readily near where you are. If you're in this area, I might be able to show you sometime.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You're so awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, look, good luck, ladies.
If
and
I'm ever in the area, I will email you, and I'll give you my address. Thank you.
And Anna, you're going to have a holiday soon, right?
Yes.
Well, enjoy it.
Yes,
You
happy
too.
holidays.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, have a good time and good luck to you.
Thank you so